Well, hello, action takers. We are back with the fifth and final day of the Unshakable Challenge by Tony Robbins. And oh my, was it a powerful and impactful day. This time, Tony covered, among other things, the 5 core actions you need in order to live an extraordinary life. Whether you're broke and struggling to get by, or you're already living a life of luxury, it's human nature to want to grow and get to the next level. And these 5 actions are what you will need in order to do it. My name is David B., one of your co-hosts with the IDK WTF I Was Doing podcast, and we did a recap each and every day of this challenge because we were sitting right there with you and 1.5 million others. I've said it before, there isn't another coach or speaker who has done more or walked the walk better than Tony Robbins. In fact, this whole challenge has been a milestone in what can be accomplished with online events. So if you're a personal development junkie like me, and this is the type of information you're into, hit that follow button so we can deliver you more content just like this in order to make your life easier and help you become the best version of yourself as quickly as possible. Have you ever started something new and didn't finish it?
You were excited. You invested time and money.
You got stuck.
I'm Teresa Merrick.
And I'm David B.
And this is the podcast with 2 ADHD entrepreneurs, and we've been there.
And worked with hundreds of people in the exact same place.
The IDK WTF I Was Doing podcast will take you away from feelings of frustration and overwhelm.
And lead you to the clarity you need to take action and get shit done.
Listen today because it's important to admit that no one really knows
what the fuck they're doing.
So we have just finished day 5 of the Become Unshakeable challenge with Tony Robbins and all the other guest presenters that he brought on. Today, we're going to talk about day 5 and the whole feel of there. So just to give you a quick review on everything that happened, we started out and he shared a story about a woman taking part in the challenge, and she just had a lot of unfortunate lifestyle events where she lost her job, she lost her house, she was stuck in a city, living in her car with her son, and she got into the challenge and she was playing full out and she was posting her videos every day. The coolest thing happened, and this is what I love about the personal development world, is that it's all about the community. Like Tony Robbins, yes, he's a wonderful coach. He's a top expert. But what's even more powerful than that is the community that comes together looking for this information. And this is 100% what we're looking to put together with the IDK WTF podcast community. So she posted just her story and some of the identities that she needed to shift. And because she posted in that group, so many people reached out to her and they said, hey, we know you're in an uncomfortable spot, but let's help you. So they cash apped her some money so she could get gas to go home. They sent her food and they got her because there was, I think, a storm and something going on with her home. They got her a hotel so she had somewhere to stay in between all of this. And it was the community that just helped her because she was someone in need. But no one would have known if she wasn't taking a part and actively trying to help herself. And she wasn't asking for anything in there. She was just sharing, and just people through the goodness of their heart came together to help. And I think that is absolutely beautiful. So then he talked about, how do you get the most out of any event? And this is something I absolutely truly believe in. If you're going to go to things like this, get as much as you can. You should be taking notes. You should be taking notes through the whole thing. If you're not, you'll get some out of it, but it's proven you're going to remember more, even if you're taking notes, even if you don't look at them again, right? But even after that, after the event, just write down all of your biggest takeaways, which is exactly what we're doing here, right? We're covering that. It's ingraining it into my mind, into our minds, which is amazing. And then the biggest thing is to write down one action step that you can do right now while you're in that peak state. So is it booking an interview, posting a YouTube video? Is it reaching out to someone? What is it right now you need to do to get towards that goal that you're working towards? The whole point of being in the event, right? So what is it you can do there? Today, we covered the 5 core actions that create an extraordinary life. And so we're going to jump right into those. The 5 core actions you need if you want to create an extraordinary life. And he says, if your life is terrible, right now, these are the things you need to do to get it out. If your life is going really well, it's human nature to always want to get better. So these are the things you need to do that as well. So it doesn't matter where you are. These are the 5 things that are going to help you. So step number 1 is to get clear with what you want and where you are. And so many of us have this. Do you feel it? Is there a gap from where you are right now and where you want to be? And so many people have this instinct to save themselves, and they lie about the discomfort that they're really, really in. He said the best way to look at this is, do you have something in your life today that was once a dream or a goal that you really thought was impossible, but you now have? And he took us through an exercise to just think about, what's something right now? Is it like the car that you're driving, the place that you live in, relationship that you're in, the partner that you're with? What is it that you once thought was impossible and you now have that? Write down, what was it that actually made that happen? What were the steps you took to get there? What was the limiting belief you had to get rid of? What was the action that you had to do to make this thing a reality? Was it just a little bit of luck, right? What happened to make this happen? And he says, chances are, so after you've gone through this exercise, he says, chances are there were 3 things that you did, even likely subconsciously, that were able to get you this thing that you once thought was impossible. The first thing you did is you were focusing on it all of the time, because where focus goes, energy flows. If we focus on the obstacles, we will never get there. That's the nature of it, right? When you focus on it, it's like the kid riding a bike. Don't hit the tree, and then he drives right into the tree. The second thing is you need to have a clarity on the reasons you want to get there and then take massive action to do it. So the second thing is know your why, of course, and then take massive action. And this is the thing I think we talk about here in a second as well. So just having that clarity on the reasons you want it, taking action to get there, and you're subconsciously changing your approach because it's this thing that you really wanted, and you're just going for it and going for it and going for it. Chances are you didn't get it the first time. You had to do different things to get there. So you took a lot of action. You were changing your approach to get out of what didn't work and get to what did work. And then you finally made it. And then the third thing that probably got you that thing that was once a dream or a goal was to have some grace. And some people call it luck. Some people call it God. Some people call it the universe. One of the messages that I say personally, he didn't say it in here, but my favorite quote is that the definition of luck is where opportunity and preparation meet. So there are so many people, the opportunity might present themselves, and it could be very lucky that the opportunity is there. But if they're not prepared to meet that, nothing changes, right? So whether it's grace, the world can give you something nice, but if you're not ready to receive it to get to where you're trying to go, it doesn't matter. He then says, if I were to ask you right now, what is something you want to improve on? What would give you the greatest rewards if you focused on it right now? So write down this specifically. What is the one thing that will give you the greatest reward today if you focus on it? Is it something health related? Is it losing weight, becoming fitter, dealing with health challenges? Is it your relationships? Was there something in your relationship you would like to focus on? Or is it something in your career or your business that you want to focus on? What's the number one area that you want to improve right now? So write that down. And then the next thing to write down is, what are 2 action steps you can take right now to work towards that? Is it a class you need to enroll in? Is there someone you need to call? Is there someone you need to forgive? Or is there someone you need to apologize to? Is there a meeting you need to schedule or a text to send? So any 2 things on what you just wrote down previously would move you towards that right away and make it something you can do today, not something that you need more steps to do. What's something you can do now? So that was basically step number 1 of how to have an extraordinary life. Step number 2 of an extraordinary life is you need to destroy and annihilate any sort of limitation. And this is just the way he phrased it, I think, is so powerful, because we have this thing with these limiting beliefs, and everyone, I hate the term limiting belief because I feel like it's so overused. And what he says is it doesn't need to be, you don't need to know what your limiting belief is. You need to crush it, destroy it, and annihilate it. He says, how many of us have beliefs inside of us that intellectually make no sense, but emotionally keep popping up and pulling back? If the only thing keeping you from getting what you want is that story that you're telling yourself about why you can't do it, That's the entire point of this 5-day challenge. So the stories we're telling ourselves are just beliefs. And what is a belief? It's a feeling of absolute certainty about something. And like you said, beliefs create and beliefs destroy. So if we're absolutely certain of our limitation, we're going to have that limitation. So the beliefs are called the story, but if you change your story, you can change your life. Again, the entire message. And I really like that. And if like days 1 and 2, I think really cement that into our minds. He says, understanding doesn't change our life. You have to get these limiting beliefs out of your nervous system. They're wired into us. So you have to rewire yourself so they no longer exist and are replaced with positive action. That sounds much easier said than done. But I think if that's the focus, that is such a good goal to focus on. Like if we have this thing in our life that we know is stopping us, how do we annihilate it? So he says one reason we keep it is because of learned helplessness. And there's 3 things to learned helplessness that just make it almost impossible to get out of our nervous system. This is so why these limiting beliefs are so wired into us. And there's 3 P's of learned helplessness. The first P is called pervasiveness. Once we believe we don't have something or can't do something, and that we'll never be able to do it, this is what destroys our life. We feel like it's just radiating all around us, and it's there and it exists, right? And it's pervasive. We're always thinking about it. The second P is permanent. When we have that feeling of no matter what I do, nothing will work and nothing will change, we feel that this limiting belief is permanent, right? And number 3 is it's personal. And here's the thing, one thing to focus on, if someone else has done it, there's no reason you can't. But to have a personal feeling of it's just me, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, these things aren't for me, it's for other people, that means that limiting belief is going to stay inside of you forever. Till you can reverse those 3 Ps, that learned helplessness is going to stay. That limiting belief is going to stay. It's going to continue to be the story, and that's going to continue to be your life. And then again, he says, it's not enough to understand. It's not enough to know that you want to do something or that you could do something. You have to rewire yourself. So the next exercise he says that we went through is we wrote down, what is a limiting belief in your life that's been holding you back? What is the belief? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. People don't like me. They're not going to respect me. They don't want to listen to me. I'm too young. I'm too old. What is that limiting belief? And then he says, the next step is, what has that belief cost you in your life? What does it cost you to give up? Has it cost you money? Has it cost you just frustration, anger, emotional distress? Has it cost you time? Has it cost you what's not in your life because of this belief? And the third thing to write down is what's the opposite of this belief. If I'm too young, I am old enough. I'm too ugly, maybe I'm not ugly, right? So I am attractive enough. I don't have the skills. Well, maybe I do have the skills to learn. And then the 4th step is, what would your life be like if you never had this belief in the first place? Would you have tried harder? Would you have gone out more? What would be different in your life if it wasn't there? And that's how you really emotionally get this into you, to try and start rewiring yourself to get to the limiting belief out of that nervous system of yours. And that's such a big one. And that's a lot of what I think Jamie Kearns-Lima spoke about yesterday as well, is just getting rid of those limiting beliefs and rewriting that story. So step number 3 of an extraordinary life is you need to watch your transformational vocabulary. He says, watch your TV. So TV is the vocabulary that you're using in your everyday life. Words create biological chemistry. The words you attach your experience to literally become your experience of the world. So when you're busy complaining about what didn't go well, what you didn't get, what didn't accomplish, you're staying in that negative state. And those words you habitually use become the experience and the pattern you're habitually in. This again ties into the 5 to thrive, the 5 things to focus on in order to thrive. But it's your physiology and your language were 2 of the main ones, right? We move more, we use the right language, and I forget the 3rd one right off the top of my head. I'm sure someone else knows it. Before I wasn't going through this, I'm sure I could think of it. But really, really watching that language. And he gave some good examples, but I think it's been covered pretty well, so I wasn't going to dive into it more. So the step number 4 is, once again, the 4th step you need to live an extraordinary life is to take massive action. He says massive action is always the cure-all. But the key with massive action is to change the approach if something doesn't work, instead of massively doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think we all know this, right? I think that he didn't mention this one, but every time someone proves that something doesn't work, right, then some idiot goes off and does it. And it's just taking the action to get there. Always, always, always is, if that's the only thing you're doing without focusing on anything else, chances are you're going to be more successful than someone else who's not doing anything. But the key is to be able to change the approach if something's not working. And then the best way to do it is to start it while you're still in that positive state. And like right after an event like this, take some massive action. What can you do to take more action? And he says, because eventually your energy level is going to go down. After all of these events, and tomorrow, your energy level is going to be lower, and it's going to be harder to take that action. And then it's going to be harder the further away you get from here, especially if you're not enrolled in that UPW, to boost it back up, right? He says, eventually your energy goes down. When it goes down, you beat yourself up. When you beat yourself up, your energy goes down further, and it's a spiral downward. The only moment we can control is right now. So the fifth step to an extraordinary life is to make it a habit to give more than you receive. And this is just huge. He says, if you know you're going to be giving 1,000 times more than anyone else in your industry or anyone else at your job, anyone else anywhere, you will never hesitate to share your message. And if you absolutely know that you're in the spirit of giving, it's not uncomfortable. And then the flip side, right? Once you start to become successful, you say, oh, I'll donate later. I'll give when I have more. He says, if you're not willing to give a dime out of $1, you're not the type of person who will give 100,000 out of 1,000,000. You just won't be. If you don't have a giving spirit, it shows on people are going to sense that, and it makes people more closed off to you. So those are the 5 steps to have an extraordinary life. So I hope you took good notes on that. So after that, Dean Graziosi came up and he speaks on closing the gap. And this is a really interesting one, especially with those people in the sales industry or coaches or even like artists, right? This is an important thing to think about. So how do you get from where you are to where you want to go? And step number 1, just like we covered, that Tony covered today in the steps on how to have an extraordinary life, is to really be honest with where you are right now. All change starts with being honest. And this is something that I'll find with a lot of my clients as well. So I'll say, how are things going? And we always want to sugarcoat it. We always want to soften it and say, it's okay. It's not too bad. Or people will say, at least I have a job, or someone else has it worse than me. And that's great. And she says, I'm just happy. I'm just blessed. And the thing is, yes, we're all blessed. Yes, we're all happy, but it's dishonest to think that there isn't another level that you would like to get to. It's just in our nature, and it's what makes being human so great, is we're always trying to innovate. We're always trying to get better. We're always trying to grow. And it's okay to admit that, right? But so often people have a hard time because we're trained not to be selfish and not to be greedy. And after years and years of that, it gets really hard to be honest with the things to say that you are dissatisfied with the place that you're at. So the second step is first step is to be brutally honest with where you are. The second step is to be brutally honest with where you want to go. This is another really strange thing people have a hard time with, because it's really easy to rattle off exactly what we don't want, what we don't like, what we're unhappy about, what we wish wasn't happening. But many of us don't spend enough time figuring out what we do want, what a perfect life would look like, what it would look like, what would be better at work if this was in place. And Dean gives the exercise for this one. So instead of trying to think of what you do want right now, he says, try and step forward a year into the future, right? Just imagine with us to step forward into a year into the future, and then turn around and look backward. If this was the best year of your life, what would that look like? Was it a year full of love? Was it a year full of income with more time? Did you have more freedom? Who's around you? What does that perfect day look like that you've built up over the next year? So that's a little bit of an easier way to think about it than trying to say, okay, what do I want right now? Now, the third step is then to say, okay, what's in the middle? So here's where I am. Here's where I want to go. What's in the middle? The first part of that is then to figure out why do you want to go from where you are to where you want to go? What's the why? What's the reason? And he did a really powerful exercise on this one, which was really good. Just getting into the core of, but again, this is your identity and your compelling future. So what is it, your core driver? What is it that's really moving you? Is it because you don't want, I'm not going to go into it because it's another deep one, and I'm sure you'll hear it again, but it's how do you go into that deeper from the intellectual level of what you want? And the exercise is to go 7 levels deep. So you write down the reason that you want it, and then you say, okay, why do you want that? And then you ask that question 7 times to get out of the intellectual mindset of why you want to do it to the heart, to what's deep in your heart and like your true passion of why you want to do it. And once you have a strong enough why, then you can figure out the how. The easiest how of anything to do is to model someone who's done it before, or to model someone who's an expert in this industry to help you. And this is what the entire thing is about. This has been 5 days of really, really good information. And I honestly think after days 1 and 2, just that was enough paradigm shift for most people to really start working on this themselves. But that energy does start to fade after time. The fastest way to do it is if you model someone who's already done it. There's 2 people I always recommend to model. Someone who's either the best in the industry, someone who's at the top, and there's no one more at the top than Tony Robbins. And that's not even hyperbole. He's just launched all of the coaches in every industry, right? And ties their success back to some tapes of his that they listen to. And all the coaches are modeling it off of something of his, right? So again, that's why UPW is such a good deal. And it's just stupid. And again, I'm not affiliated with this at all. It's just stupid not to do it just because of what they're offering. So either follow the top or follow someone who's just a little bit ahead of you. So someone who might be just, they themselves got help with their relationship and they seem to be doing a lot better, or they've just launched a business, or maybe they're a year or 2 into it and they can understand like your struggles with it. Because Tony Robbins can help with someone who's launching a business with the overarching concepts. But, you know, he's been in business for 40 some years. He doesn't know any of the challenges that are actually happening right now today. He doesn't know the specifics on how to set up a website or a landing page, right? He doesn't know the specific, because he's been paying people to do that for decades. So either follow someone who's a little bit ahead of you, who can help you with those specific things and really understands like the current struggles, or the best of the best. Perfect. And that was basically it today. So then they gave away some prizes. I think they shared a couple more stories and invited us back to their offer on there. But honestly, I think it was a really good day. I loved how they set it up. The one thing I didn't like, and I'll say this is like my really big complaint, and it's normally my complaint, is a lot of these were surface level exercises where instead of having us like find a way to find our limiting belief, he just says, what's your limiting belief? And for someone like me, who's been trying something over and over again, it's like, I don't know the limiting belief that's holding me back from this level that I'm trying to get to. And in the relationships one, he goes, who do you need to become a better like lover? And there was a few in there, and it's, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm doing okay. And a lot of us will have blockages on some of the things holding us back. And that wasn't really touched on here almost at all. And I imagine that it's harder to do when you only have 2.5 hours, but I think there could have been some more deeper stuff. I think the archetypes from day 1 was like the perfect example of something like that. That really broke down, here's 4 parts of your personality that you're probably are not aware of exist. So what are some things in there that you can pull from yourself? And I thought that was great. I don't know. I think there's just some things that could have been deeper on how to like actually troubleshoot a little bit more to pull some of these answers out of us. He didn't really do anything to pull these answers from us. But otherwise, it's cool because 1.5 million people were on this. They said 70% of them have never heard anything like this before. So that's more what this this was catered to, which is great. So I would love to hear what your biggest takeaways are. If you comment that down below, let me know what your biggest takeaways were. What were some things that you did? What are some things that you didn't like? I would love to hear more. Was there anything in here you totally disagreed with that you thought was just complete malarkey? And were you offended that he had such a strong sales offer at the end and in the middle of it? Was that something that turned you off? Or did you find it was just a great value and something you're very interested in? So I would love to hear from you guys what any of your takeaways were. Thanks so much for listening to these recaps. And if you enjoyed it, we'll definitely be doing more of them. I am very proud of you for being here and making it through all 5 days, or at least taking a recap on it. And I'm really excited to see you soon. So talk to you later.
Have you ever started something new that you were really excited about and invested time or money into, but after doing it for a while, you reach a point and you just feel like, I have no idea what the F I'm doing?
There's that bubbling up of frustration because you're not quite as good as you thought you'd be, or it's nowhere near as easy as you expected. Then suddenly, a wave of guilt comes at the same time, and you don't really want to or feel like you can express this to anyone.
Having a dream you want to accomplish can be very sad and isolating. It's lonely because visionaries tend to see the world the way that it could be instead of settling for the way the world currently is, like most people do.
We believe this so deeply that we wrote a book with the exact 4 steps to help.
This guide is designed to take you out of that feeling of frustration and overwhelm and lead you into the calmness and clarity that you need to reach the life that you know in your heart you're destined to have.
If you've started a project or a goal but have stopped, gotten stuck, or are starting to feel burned out, this is 100% the book for you.
Go to idkwtfpodcast.com today and download your digital copy with the coupon code ACTION to get it on us, because we want to join you and be your supportive friends and partners throughout your journey.
It's only free for a limited time if you use the code ACTION by going to our website, idkwtfpodcast.com.
Check it out today and let's get unstuck together.